We'll be happy that you attended. Our publisher is not here this morning, but it's not in his character to be absent at a day like this. Something cropped up that he needed to attend to very urgently, physically and bodily. That's why I am stepping into his shoes, very big shoes at that this morning. Having said that, the next voice you will hear is my publishers, and that's through me. Distinguished sponsors, esteemed guests, industry stakeholders, innovators, and participants, good morning, and welcome to the Business Day Future of Payment Conference 2025. It is my pleasure and privilege to warmly welcome you all to what promises to be a significant gathering of minds, shaping the future of finance and commerce in Nigeria and across Africa. Today's theme, Fintech Evolution, contactless payments are the gateway to seamless transactions, speaks directly to the shift we are witnessing in the way people and businesses move money around. From the market stalls in Lagos to global e-commerce platforms, the demand for speed, safety, and simplicity is driving innovation like never before. We are especially grateful to our sponsors. Without your support, this event would not have been possible. Your investment in dialogue, collaboration, and innovation is what continues to move the ecosystem forward. We also thank our sponsors, our speakers and panelists, leaders, disruptors, and policy shapers who have graciously agreed to share insights that we spark thoughts and drive action. At Business Day, we remain committed to creating platforms like these that facilitate conversations, foster connections, and deliver clarity in times of transformation. The future of payment is not just about technology. It is about trust. It is about inclusion, and it is about access. And it is up to us to ensure that the evolution of fintech truly benefits every Nigerian and, of course, every African. We'll encourage you to participate actively, ask questions, and forge collaborations that will outlast today. Thank you for being part of this journey with us. Let us chart the course, the future of payments that is seamless, that is secure, that is inclusive. Welcome once again and enjoy the conference. Thank you. I am Frank Aibogu. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Another round of applause for that very wonderful speech from the publisher. I do agree that fintech is our future, and then we must take it very seriously, and that is why we're having these conversations. It is very important that we do this to build the collaboration that we need to strengthen the partnerships that we need to drive the future of transactions and financial technology in Nigeria. Well, we're moving on very quickly to the next agenda. We'll be taking the keynote address from Mr. Premier Oiwo. He's not here today. He'll be represented by Mr. Ugo Obasi, who is the Chief Commercial Officer at Africa Pay Financial Services Limited. Let's welcome him to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. and thank you for having me. So, just borrowing in the words of the last speaker, I'm sure it will be my voice, but the mind of Premier Owell, who is our Group Managing Director at NABES. My name is Ugo Obasi. I'm the Executive Director and Chief Commercial Officer for Afrigo, which is a subsidiary of NABES and the National Domestic Art Scheme. So once again, good morning, everyone. It's a rare privilege to stand before such an esteemed audience today. On behalf of the entire executive team at NABES, I wish to, and particularly for our Group Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Premier Owell, I wish to extend my deepest appreciation to BusinessDay for organizing this incredible gathering and for the opportunity to address you all. To our distinguished guests, industry leaders, innovators, and visionaries, your presence here today is a testament to the shared commitment we all have toward driving financial inclusion and digital payments. Each of you plays a vital role in shaping the future of this ecosystem, and it is an honor to be part of this conversation with you. This event is not just a meeting of minds, it is a platform for collaboration, inspiration, and meaningful dialogue. As we embark on today's discussions, let us embrace new ideas, challenge perspectives, and explore the limitless possibilities ahead. Once again, thank you to our hosts, partners, and our attendees for being here. Let us make this an unforgettable experience. Today, we mark a journey through time and a revolution that has transformed the way we transact, reshaping our financial landscape in ways once thought unimaginable. The rise of contactless payments. What was once considered a futuristic convenience is now a necessity, accelerating commerce, ensuring security, and transforming the global payments ecosystem. Let us begin by discussing the evolution of digital payments, from their humble beginnings to the cutting-edge convenience of contactless payments we discuss today. Our journey begins in 1870s, when I was much younger, when Western Union introduced electronic funds transfer using telegraphs, the precursor to modern wire transfers. In the 1950s, the concept of a credit card emerged, spearheaded by the Diners Club. This groundbreaking general-purpose charge card allowed customers to purchase goods and services without carrying cash, introducing the world to the idea of cashless transactions. Shortly thereafter, American Express and a Bank of America followed suit, giving rise to the era of bank-issued credit cards. In the late 1960s, Barclays Bank introduced the first ATMs in the UK, followed by Chemical Bank in the US. Fast forward to the 1970s, and the magnetic stripe card made its debut. This technology, developed by IBM, allowed data to be stored directly on the card, speeding up transactions and paving the way for electronic payment terminals. In 1972, the ACH, or what we call the Automatic Clearing House, was established for electronic payments. In 1977, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications, or what is known here as SWIFT, was launched for cross-border payments. By the 1990s, the advent of the internet and digital technology revolutionized electronic payments, leading to the development of online banking and e-commerce. The 1990s also marked another turning point with the introduction of EMV chip technology. Unlike magnetic stripes, which were vulnerable to fraud, EMV chips enhanced security through encryption, making transactions more reliable and secure. With this advancement, card payments became smarter, reducing fraud and elevating consumer confidence. In 1995, Seoul's Transit Authority launched UPass for bus rides, arguably the first contactless payment systems globally, now replaced by T-Money. In 1997, ExxonMobil, the USA, launched SpeedPass, originally developed by Verifone, allowing customers pay for PMS using a special FOB loaded with cash at participating gas stations. On the 30th of June 2003, that's the Transport for London, introduced the MyFair or RFID powered Oyster card, driving mass adoption of contactless payments in the transit sector. In March 2011, Alipay introduced QR code scanning payments, and WeChat followed in 2014, further popularizing the method. MasterPass QR was launched in 2016. In 2011 also, Google Wallet was launched, allowing users to make point-of-sale purchases with their mobile devices using near-field communication, or what we call NFC technology here. In 2014, Apple Pay was launched, enabling contactless payments with iPhones and Apple Watches. In 2015, Samsung launched Samsung Pay with support for contactless payments via NFC. Before we dive deeper into the topic, it is important that we clearly define the concept of contactless payment. A contactless payment is one that does not require a customer or consumer to insert or swipe a payment card through a terminal. Contactless payments simply require a customer to hover a card or a device next to the payment terminal. In some cases, a brief tap makes the transaction simpler, from which the expression tap to pay was coined. Contactless transactions are enabled by near-field communication or radio frequency identification chip embedded in a payment card, FOB, smartphone, smartwatch, fitness device, or any other wearables. Alternatively, contactless payments also relate to quick response code payments, through which consumers make payments by scanning a machine-readable code consisting of an array of black and white squares using the cameras or their smartphones. The machine-readable code can be printed, displayed on a screen, or even attached to a product. The product or the code typically directs the customer to a payment page where they can authorize transactions through a digital wallet or banking app. The acceleration of contactless payments was aided by the COVID-19 pandemic, we all remember, when consumers and businesses sought no-touch payment methods to reduce physical contact. Today, digital wallets, wearable payments, and biometrics have become a part of daily life, redefining commerce as we know it. In a world that thrives on speed and efficiency, contactless payments have become a cornerstone of modern financial transactions. The delays of fumbling for cash or waiting for card approvals are fading. Instead, a simple tap, wave, or scan allows payments to be processed in seconds, bringing unprecedented ease to consumers and businesses alike. There are so many important messages that we can get from contactless payments. There are a lot of benefits. One, we'll talk about speed and convenience. Contactless transactions significantly reduce checkout times, improving customer experiences and streamlining business operations. We talk about security. Advanced encryption and tokenization today ensure that contactless payments are more secure than traditional magnetic stripe cards. With biometric authentication and real-time fraud detection, consumers can trust that their transactions remain protected. Financial inclusion. Digital wallets and mobile-based payments allow access to financial services for those without traditional banking, empowering underserved communities and supporting economic growth. The broader impacts across the ecosystem would include the many use cases of contactless payments, such as public transport and mobility. Cities worldwide now leverage contactless payments for seamless access to buses, trains, and toll systems, making urban travel frictionless. Retail and hospitality. Businesses benefit from faster transactions, reducing cash handling costs, and enhanced customer satisfaction. Healthcare and services. Contactless payments in healthcare and service industries streamline billing, reducing administrative burdens, and ensuring smoother experiences. There are challenges to that also, which would include the fact of security and privacy concerns. Fraud has become a major concern globally. In our domestic market, lack of authentication for smaller transactions in contactless payments could raise additional concerns for users. So we hear stories of, when I tap my card on a machine, or somebody takes your card, or even you pass, and a reader or a device with a reader can take your money even in your pocket. So some of those things are myths that we have to address. Multiplicity of payment options. Today, our domestic payments system has matured credibly well through cards and other account-to-account payments rails, such as instant transfers, USSD, biometrics, and others. Inadvertently, this reduces the sense of urgency in adopting the relatively newer payment options. And lack of customer awareness. Many customers today are unaware that their bank-issued cards are already enabled for contactless payments. I can assure you that many people today, even some of us here, the cards that you're carrying are all contactless enabled, but we do not know. So we need to know that most cards that are issued in Nigeria are all contactless ready. We probably just need to work around the acquiring ecosystem. Low risk appetite by acquirers, like I mentioned. While regulatory policies and guidelines have been introduced to drive adoption, the central bank today has released policies on adoption of contactless payments, but many of our acquirers, the banks and the likes, are still afraid about accepting such transactions. So the risk is, however, mitigated through tokenizing cards on mobile devices, effectively utilizing existing biometric authentication methods that exist on these devices. In conclusion, the future of contactless payments is ever promising. Integrations to wearables, AI-driven fraud prevention, blockchain, and biometric authentication will continue to drive innovation and adoption. At NIBS and Afrigo in particular, we are at the forefront of this initiative, increasing consumer confidence and ensuring secure, frictionless transactions by fostering a robust digital payment ecosystem powered by NFC or RFID-enabled Afrigo cards, which enable both real-time and offline contactless payments. So every Afrigo card that is issued in Nigeria today are already contactless, and we are working to ensure that they are good enough for online and offline authentications. So whether you are in an offline environment, the card will work. As contactless payments continue to evolve, our infrastructure will remain at the forefront of financial transformation, powering a more connected and cashless future. The cashless society is no longer an abstract vision. It is our reality today, and we must embrace this transformation to drive financial efficiency and inclusion. So as we stand at this pivotal moment in financial evolution, let us champion contactless payments, not just as a technology, but as a force for progress, security, and inclusion. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you very much, sir. Who here is looking forward to a time where we would be doing contactless payments, where you don't have to carry your card around, you don't have to open that bank app, you'll not be restricted by internet. If you listen very well, that's what our last speaker was saying. And just before we go on, we'd like to say thank you to our sponsors, to those that have made today happen. We'd like to say thank you to Red Tech, Ethnos Cyber Limited, and Olanimu Ajayi. Thank you very much for sponsoring this event. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Also, at Business Day, we have a premium site. is our site. That site is where you will see, if you want to see stories where you will not see anywhere else, I'm telling you, this on our premium site, you get stories where you wouldn't see anywhere else. Also, there are no adverts. If you even see the UI UX of that site, you enjoy whatever you are reading. So please do well to subscribe to our site, our premium site at www.businessday.ng. Yes, please do well to do that. I'll be asking everyone much later if they've subscribed to our site. So up next, we have a presentation from someone at the forefront of fintech innovation in Africa. Our next speaker is Mr. Emmanuel Ojo. He is the MD CEO of Red Tech Limited. He is one of the sponsors of this event. With over 20 years of cross-sector experience, he brings a sharp lens on how technology can drive smarter, more inclusive financial solutions across Nigeria and beyond. Under his leadership, Red Tech is delivering products that are helping to reshape the digital finance sector. So please, you guys, we can all clap again for him. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Are you going to show my presentation? Good morning, all. I bring greetings from the red zone, the management and board of directors of Red Tech Limited, and also our parent company, Hez Holdings. First, I'd like to appreciate the previous speaker, Ugo, who gave us a run-through of the history, so I won't bother. But before I put the meal in front of you, I probably want to work on your appetite. If we don't work on your appetite, you won't be able to eat, like the doctor says. So, taking a cue from what Ugo just discussed about contactless payments, we're all still faced or concerned about possible risks and threats. And for those of us that have had the opportunity of going along with the journey of the computing world, the first principle they tell you is that to completely keep a computer system safe, you have to wrap a very heavy metal around it with 2 heavy bricks and drop it in the middle of the ocean. It would be completely safe, but it would not be usable by you. And if you look at that in other industries, just like no thanks to COVID, when we all had to use vaccines that had not been tested for up to 10 years in the medical world, we had to still take the risk. The point I'm making is, God forbid, I mean, this building is very strong. It won't collapse. But we're all here. It's also a risk. So the point I'm making is, I'm working on your risk appetite before I serve the food. So let's proceed. So bridging the gap, realities and opportunities for contactless payments in Africa. Let's just go. Okay, how does digital payment shape Africa? As I mentioned, Ugo has talked a lot about it. He's giving us a run through, and that's what is on that slide as well. Where are my colleagues here? Maybe you could bring my system as well so I can, I'm not seeing clearly. But the run through essentially is that we've moved through the evolution of the first card that I recall was value card that used to be loaded, and then we moved to debit card, and then we experienced credit card, and then we had internet banking, and then we experienced mobile app. And then there was a point in time in this same country, you would get to a POS terminal, and you would have to ask, is this POS powered by InterSwitch or powered by unified payment, before we achieved interoperability. Thank you. Pardon me. Okay. So, essentially, moving on to the next slide, the critical role of digital payments in Africa. In Nigeria last year, it was observed that fintech contributed about roughly about 18% or roughly 19% to the GDP. And the how that happened is that we obviously had foreign investments pumped into the country. As you know, we have many of our fintechs, or not many, but a handful of our fintechs that are now unicorn. I dare say you should watch out for red tech as well. Hopefully, we'll make our own announcement very soon. But essentially, digital payment is having a spiral positive effect in Africa. If you go to other African countries beyond Nigeria, you would see the impact of digital payments, how it's enabling employment, transactions, commerce through agency banking and the likes. So it's contributing significantly. It's boosting informal economy, reducing cash dependency around the world, and particularly in Africa. It's also enhancing transparency, increasing efficiency. Today, you can actually, track any form of payment from one point to the other, as long as it's an electronic payment. Once it's converted to cash, you've lost track of that payment. As I mentioned, it's also attracting foreign investments into the continent, and as well, there's a strong collaboration between traditional banking infrastructure and digital payments as well. So it's really contributing a lot to Africa. Moving on to the next slide. Despite the progress made, the next slide. Despite the progress made with digital payments, it's still obvious that about 16% of global purchases are settled in cash. Cash, I doubt if cash can totally be eradicated. We will still have the need for cash. It has its own relevance. But looking at the statistics there, $267 trillion is linked to global payment transactions, about 16 trillion cash settled transaction value in 2023. So you can see all the analysis in terms of existing and predictions by year 2027 is all displayed there. However, you can see that digital payment, is gaining significant momentum. Next slide, please. Nigeria, as a special case study, is different. 55% of purchases are still cash despite many fintech operators. We all saw what happened January 2023, Q1 2023 actually, when there was a reduction in cash withdrawal limit in the banks, and everyone was forced to fully rely more on digital payment. We noticed it gave us a realistic view that a lot of our residents or citizens are yet to adopt digital payment. During that period, I was able to use my digital channels, cards, for 6 months stretch without touching cash. The personal impact on me was the fact that I had more savings. When I got to the car park and the security guards that help you to navigate your way, you politely tell them that, sorry, I don't have cash. When I checked my bank account, I realized that my savings was increasing. I now realize how much I was losing by giving out cash, because Nigerians were very kind-hearted. You'll be surprised that everywhere we go, we tip. I guess that's why the other Africans are loving us. Another story. But despite that, there is obviously still a handful of adoption of cash in Nigeria, which we have to work on. The reality is that as the population demography evolves, there are predictions that in the continent, by year 2030, the growth of young Africans would have increased by 42%. And predictions have it that by year 2100, the growth would have increased by 181%. The reality is that digital payments are mostly powered by younger folks, because younger folks are more inquisitive and they have the tendency to like to drive innovation. So we believe that in the continent will significantly benefit from the youths going forward. Next slide. Okay, most of these cash-based transactions happen in the informal market. This is just still touching on the informal market, $210 billion informal market contribution to the Nigerian GDP. This is just building a case of where we are actually going. Next slide. Looking at the card schemes, we can see that there's been a significant penetration of card schemes in Nigeria. This is not my updated slides. I did not miss out Africa. Ugo, trust me. But we can see that from the stats, we do not have some card schemes there, but I'll pitch it. Significantly, we have a growing number of VEV cards. We have MasterCard, and followed by Visa card. Surprisingly, whilst the MasterCard and Visa card are the two predominant global cards, there's a card scheme that is not present here, which is UnionPay International as well. You know, from the statistics, MasterCard and Visa card put together are just about 50% of the total UnionPay International cards, you know, in the world. And those significantly, most of those cards are in Asia, but they seem to be, the adoption seems to be growing within the African continent. Now, what I'd like to point out here is that I'm not marketing for Ugo, but there is need for us to also consider the promotion of local card schemes, because the reality is that local card schemes helps to grow the economy because there's less dependency on FX. You know, you have to think about fees in FX, and that could change a whole lot of games for SMEs. And I'm hoping that I'm able to collaborate with Ugo or Afrigo across Africa, where we are present in 20 countries. I think I can see Ugo smiling now. Next slide. Okay, so digital payment challenges in Africa. Device and connectivity gaps is a challenge. Sparse merchant infrastructure, banks' infrastructure, connectivity and energy constraints, fragmented payment ecosystem, high cost of access and maintenance. So essentially, I'll summarize. Like I always mention in different forums, fintech, or if you like, digital payments, stand on two major infrastructures: the power sector and the telecommunications sector. Without telecommunication, you are not able to make progress in communication. Digital payment is aided by communication, e-messaging. And without the power sector, you need to recharge your devices. Those two are pillars that drives digital payment. If we are going to make a significant progress in driving digital payments in Africa, there will need to be some strategic collaborations with those two industries. This is currently limiting the level of penetration of digital payment in Africa. You would have heard the saying where they say we are still scratching the surface. That is exactly one of the things, major things, that is affecting the deepening of digital payments in Africa. Next slide. So, we're landing there now. Contactless payment, QR code, zero cost, tap and go. Essentially, we haven't made significant progress with contactless payments in Africa. As you know, just similar to any product, adoption of any product, there's what you call reaction to change. It took a long time for people to adopt cards in Nigeria. Like Ugo mentioned, there is need for significant literacy on the benefits of contactless payment. I dare say that part of how we might be able to drive the adoption is also, which will be shown in subsequent slides, we might need to consider frameworks like a hyperlocal approach. We might need policy intervention. For instance, I'm not giving out ideas, but you can take it. Just imagine if in the POS world, we have two major service lines. We have the merchant services. I'll break it down. Merchant services is the POS you come across when you go to Genesis, or you come to 4 Point here and you want to pay. The agency banking is the one where Ugo will not want us to know he has a lot of money, takes his card to an agent point to collect cash. But just imagine, due to a policy change, to say that these two different units for agency banking, for you to transact at an agent point, it should be a contactless mode. What would that mean? The implication of that is that the POS terminals that will be deployed for agency banking, because there's a license that supports this operation, super agency license from CBN, would mean that if you call yourself an agent, then the kind of POS you should be holding will not be able to accept cards. You can only do contactless. And contactless has different modes. You could initiate a transaction even through contactless where you get an OTP. Let's assume the contactless mode is not working like it's the one that is showing on the slide. But you can initiate a transaction at the agent point. You get a one-time password, that's what I mean by OTP, sent to your registered phone, and then you punch it on the POS and you complete the transaction. If we look at the volume of transactions going through agency banking, that is a very strategic opportunity to drive contactless payments. I don't know why, I stand to be corrected, why we have to be using card for merchant transactions on POS, or we're using card for agent points. Why not contactless? for the feature phones that are not smartphones, like I mentioned, you can use a USSD, combination of USSD and OTP mode to do the transaction at the agent point. But we'll keep thinking about it. Next slide. So contactless pay offers important benefits, particularly for informal sector transactions. Speed, convenience, no need for change, no capex, affordable transactions fee, transaction history, and audit hygienic. So, in summary, the reality is that depending on how the contactless is implemented, there's a way you implement contactless and you still go through silo systems. You go through your issuer, you go through the intermediary, you go through your acquirer bank. But what we're trying to say here is one of the best ways you can experience contactless is essentially when it's within a closed loop. The reality is that closed loop guarantees a higher success rate compared to open schemes. Because in open schemes, you're dealing with multiple systems, and based on those multiple systems, they also pose the threat of multiple failure points. Failure in one of the points would affect your experience. So just imagine as another idea where commercial banks could enable their mobile banks to do contactless. So based on the mobile app, you could be a payer, and based on the same mobile app belonging to UBA, did I mention UBA? Belonging to a bank, you could also be a merchant. That may also reduce the worry of cost on POS, since we both have smartphones and we are both banking with UBA, banks. Next slide. So what does contactless payment need to succeed in Africa? Strong digital infrastructure, correct? Public-private collaboration, I mentioned government intervention, strategic investor involvement. Just like for that point, even though I was doing some other things, but I was paying attention to this presentation. We would need to get some form of intervention. There are a lot of cards that are NFC enabled, but a lot of POS are not necessarily NFC enabled. For you to enjoy contactless through near field, that's what I'm calling NFC, near field communication payment option. The 2 points, the payment tool, which is the card, and the acceptance solution, which is the POS, both have to be NFC enabled. If one of them is not NFC enabled, it's not going to work. And the reality is that one of the challenges in driving POS is that based on the cost of investment in POS terminals, you probably have to, you'll be forced to look at the potential volume of transactions that will be processed by this merchant and try to calculate the expected return on investment. And that is one of the things that is limiting the drive for POS. It's obvious that the POS is working. The adoption of POS is working, is positively affecting the economy. But we need some sort of intervention. The case study is significant. I won't mention the major players, but it's obvious that it's driving the economy. Maybe hopefully if we get some sort of support from the government where there can be an injection of terminals into the society, and then the actors can support, the private sector can support the processing of those transactions, it will go a long way. But I must also use the opportunity to commend the private sector for the heavy investment that has been made into POS deployment into the economy so far. Next slide. So beyond the technology, direct engagement is required to solve the critical problem of trust. As I mentioned, I mentioned a hyperlocal approach, and an example there is referring to the agricultural space, where in purchasing cattle in some place in Kano, which is a very significant market. You can imagine if there's a significant level of literacy and empowerment to encourage those traders to do some of those transactions in form of first digital payments, second contactless payments, using their phones or even using their feature phones to do those transactions. That would drive a lot of adoption. There has to be consistency in financial literacy. I think that is also missing. It took a long time to get to where we are with card payment. As a former banker, there are many times that you would have stacks of cards that have not been picked up in the bank, where the bank has invested a lot, and based on the card policy, after 6 months of non-collection, you have to go and destroy those cards, which is a waste of funds. And then you have to, for those that come to pick up their cards, you have to follow them to the ATM and guide them through how they would use it, so that they don't fall into the potential threat of their vulnerability, trying to get help and exposing their confidential information. So we need to critically work on trust. Trust is a big problem. We need to start small. Probably contactless payment could start off with things that, in a case where you fall prey of intrusion, unauthorized access to your balances, the transaction that you must have done probably is something that can still be reclaimed or reclassified. For example, if you were to compare funds transfer transaction versus paying for your cable TV, like multi-choice, if somebody were to dupe you in using your payment solution to pay for DSTV, if investigated, based on my own experience in digital payments, the balance on your multi-choice account, for example, can be reclassified, can be refunded to you. But in the case of funds transfer, the risk of you losing that money is quite high. So maybe we should have a gradual approach to this, to say maybe where we should start contactless payment from is from a level whereby even if I made a genuine error in the payment, or my credentials was hacked into, but where they could use it, I could make a case and have my funds refunded to me. For another example, utilities. Most of us recharge our prepaid meters. So probably at the point of going to these online platforms to recharge your prepaid meter, a barcode comes on, you scan it, and you pay. Utilities, if there's a case, they can look into the record and suspend that payment. You've not lost your money. It's an utility payment. So I'm just giving examples of how we can gradually build confidence into contactless payment. Next slide. So this is a case study of the progress that has been made in Morocco, where they've done extensively well in driving contactless payment. I had the opportunity of also visiting Morocco. The last time I visited Morocco was in January 2023, and my drive from the airport was quite interesting. My business partner that picked me up from the airport used his phone 90% of the time to pay, pay at the toll gate, pay at the car park, pay at some restaurants, and also if you go to the commercial center, not the tourist, not Marrakesh, if you go to Casablanca, you'll see the advancement that has been made in financial services in Morocco. And that's why we picked this case study. Next slide. Predictions for the future of payments in Africa. As I mentioned earlier, there's an expected increase in population of young Africans by 2030. By 2030, by 42%. And we believe that this will significantly increase the adoption. Today, lots of fintechs, when they want to launch their product, they go to Unilag, they go to Lasso, because they are looking for young folks. So, good news. Based on the demography, we're expecting an increase. So you are not limited to Unilag and Lasso if you're in Lagos. They'll be everywhere. Continued growth of mobile money and digital wallet is also expected. Integration of AI and machine learning for personalized offerings is also a prediction, whereby AI can make predictions, suggestions to you in the payment tool that you are using. Further integration with e-commerce and retail markets. Then cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology in general is also expected to increase in terms of payment. Advancement in security and fraud prevention would also come to play in terms of combining biometrics, facial recognitions would also be needed. Today, making payment through the POS is a combination of chip and PIN, majorly. We expect that in the future, there will be an advancement in POS terminals where you can use biometric to also authenticate, and that way your card transaction is more secure. And then for your online transactions, maybe facial recognition can also be an addition. Payment as a service, increase in collaboration between fintechs and traditional banks is most needed. Banks have needs for floats. Fintechs have needs for income. And that's why the two have to collaborate. It's very important. Increase in investment and partnership, expansion of digital payment infrastructure and channel. We're already seeing that. Most recently, the CBN, in addition to NIBS, also licensed another entity, Unified Payment System, to also play the role of acting as a central processing for POS transaction. That's NSC, act as an NSC as well, PTSA rather. So we expect a lot of all this increase. We don't think CBN will stop there. We think by the time the volume of transaction increases, they'll probably create one for each region. Who knows? Next slide. Now, about RedTech, we're a technology company focused on two areas generally, financial services and oil and gas. For the fintech aspect, we have a flagship product called RedPay, where we offer automated SMS services, payment gateway, funds transfer services, data recharge, and the likes. And then for our oil and gas, we have a flagship product called Sitcom. Sitcom stands for Security, IT Infrastructure Management, Communications, and Managed Services. And essentially, what we provide in that arm of our business is intrusion detection solutions to help manage wellheads and guard against oil pipes production. And I believe that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another round of applause. Personally, I'm excited for the future that has been spoken to and spoken about today. I Well, before we move on to the next session, very quickly, would like to invite Mr. Ugo Obasi and for a quick picture, right? Mr. Ugo Obasi, please step forward. Mr. Emmanuel Ojo, Mr. Peter Ejiofor, Mr. Damilola Salawu, Mr. Zebulon Agomo, and Madam Ijoma Ude for a very quick picture. I'm sure many of us are excited for the future of payment in Nigeria, in a country and a continent with a very fastly growing population, young population. The involvement of the private sector is very important. As we have been told today, policy intervention, with speaking of private sector collaboration to improve the quality of life, the overall quality of life of Nigerians. And we were looking at a very insightful and interesting future where cryptocurrencies, where we can make transactions, where we can pay for our goods which we're buying online without the need for a debit card, a physical or cash, right? And that's something I'm excited for. I know I'm not the only one here, and we'll be hearing more. That is just the tip of the iceberg. We'll be hearing more from our very, very experts speakers. They are coming from all walks, all across the fintech space. And so we will move on to the next panel. The panel is titled The Next Wave of Digital Payments. Contactless payments, moving from hype to habit. So we'll be speaking about how do we move from the hype, the potential that we've talked about, to adoption, right? And moderating this session is someone who brings sharp industry insights and clarity to complex tech stories. Please welcome Boluwatifẹ́ Motayo, tech reporter at BusinessDay. She will be guiding a very powerful lineup of experts that we have here today. First up, I would like to invite to the podium Mr. Ayomide Kolawole, who is the engineering manager at cards and payments at MoneyPoint. Before he comes up, I would just like to say something. So please come up. He's a senior software engineer at MoneyPoint. He leads card payment team, specializes in building high performance payments solutions using Java and other machine languages, and he is contributed to Windows OS development at Microsoft, and then he is someone who is at the epicenter of digital payment. Welcome. All right, so we'll be moving on to the next speaker.
So the next speaker would be Mr. Ifeanyi Uzoka. He's the Senior Business Development Manager at PalmPay. He's a versatile professional with over 15 years of experience. Please cheer for them when they are climbing, please. He has 15 years experience in driving business growth and development across payment platforms, client relationship management, and customer services. He is experienced in issuing and inquiring, coupled with collaborations with industry experts, has enabled him deliver impactful payment solutions in a wide range of clients within the financial industry. So you see that this panel is going to be really, really awesome. See all the people we have lined up for this panel.
Promising, really, indeed. Moving on, I would like to invite Mr. Francis Ogbuka. He's the next panelist for today. He's the Vice President, Sales and Business Development with over 13 years of experience. He serves as the VP of Sales at Zone. Right, he specializes in digital payments, digital assets, and cross-border transactions. He drives growth across fintech, payments, and payments. Generally, the cashless payments we're talking about across Africa and in Nigeria. Welcome.
Last but not the least, we are inviting Mr. Damilola Salawu, the Head of Technology, Innovation, and Fintech Practice at Olaniwu Ajayi. Mr. Damilola is the head of technology and innovation at Fintech practice at Olaniwo Ajayi, Nigeria's leading law firm. He advises fintech, e-commerce, tech-enabled businesses on legal and regulatory issues. He has over 20 years of experience in Nigeria and the UK. He specializes in market entry, regulatory compliance, corporate structuring, investment, and strategic partnership. So now we leave Bolu to take over the session.
Thank you so much, Bethel. Thank you, Eniola. Could we have the second microphone, please? Thank you. So, good morning, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to sit here today to host this panel. And I believe that by the end of this panel, we will be more exposed to the concept of contactless payments and know more about the opportunities, the challenges, and basically everything in between. Now, the keynote speaker took us through the evolution of payments in Nigeria and globally. And he said that payment has evolved as technology is evolving. And today we have gotten to the era of contactless payment. And because Nigeria is trying to bring more transactions online, it's only fitting that we jump on the train. And so today, my amazing panelists today will share with us some of the nitty-gritty, the intricacies of contactless payments. Good morning and welcome to you all. So before we move on, could you please tell us your name and what you do, basically giving us context as to why you're the perfect person or persons to speak to the concept of contactless payments. Thank you.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kolawole Ayomide. I'm the engineering manager of the card payments team at MoneyPoint. So yeah, that speaks for itself.
Thank you so much.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Ifeanyi Uzoka. I drive card payment for Pampe.
Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Francis Obuka, Vice President of Business Development at Zone. I come from a very extensive background in payments and fintech, close to 15 years, and I'll be happy to speak with you this morning.
Thank you so much.
Morning, everyone. My name is Damis Salah, my partner Olaniwo Ajayi. I head the fintech team there, and because of our work, we advise fintech businesses, PTSPs, PSSPs, in relation to different aspects of their business, but particularly in relation to product design. When they design new products, we look at the products and advise them on how they can deploy those products in country in a compliant manner and in a way that achieves their business objectives. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to you all. So without wasting any of our time, we'll get right into it. So I'll start with you, Kolawole. MoneyPoint, as we know it, is one of the leading fintechs in Nigeria. And MoneyPoint is known to have a lot of dealings with small businesses and merchants. Now, what do you think? I mean, you relate with the merchants, with the small businesses. Now, what do you think from their perspective is holding back contactless payments?
I would say market readiness.
Okay.
If you look at the payment space today in Nigeria, historically, there weren't always a lot of NFC-enabled devices. I think today it's getting better. Yeah, a lot more devices that have NFC technology. We still have some way to go, right? But I think that's the major problem. A lot of the card schemes already have NFC-enabled cards, right? So most of the cards that we have today already support contactless payments. And even a lot of POSs, right, from a MoneyPoint perspective, also supports contactless payments. But it's just a thing of observing the market to see how ready we are, and I think we are very close to achieving that.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll move to you, Ifeanyi. From your standpoint at Pampe, what do you think are some barriers that are still preventing uptake?
Okay, thank you very much. For the barriers that are preventing uptake of contactless payments, in 2003, CBN released a circular on contactless payments, which have helped to guide financial institutions on how to start implementing contactless payments. but there are some barriers that have hindered that progress.
Okay.
In our economy today, we are still heavily cashed. At the point of purchase, everyone wants their money. I remember back in the days when we were in the bank, it took a while for people to start accepting transfers as a mode of payment. But thanks to COVID, when we had no choice, people had to adopt that. So, but it's still work in progress to get people to start adopting contactless payment instead of cash. Okay. There's also the issue of terminals and acquiring devices. There are not a whole lot of them out there, right? It's still limited, and it's a huge investment to start upgrading those terminals, the existing terminals, to terminals that support NFC, that support contactless payment. There's also the issue of trust and security. Today, we know that can do below 50,000 naira can go without any form of authentication. However, in PalmPay, I think we made it a priority to ensure that all transactions, irrespective of the amount, must be authenticated via PIN, to give our users that comfort that contactless payments can be achieved in a very secured manner. Today, our cards are all contactless enabled, and we have over 60% of our acquiring devices also contactless enabled. So these are some of the barriers in the market today that are hindering the uptake of contactless payments.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think along the conversation, we'll get to what can be done about it. So right now, I'll move on to Francis. Now, Francis, you lead Zone, and Zone is a blockchain dependent, or will I say blockchain enabled payments organization. Now, what do you think? How do you think blockchain infrastructure can drive contactless payments in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I don't lead Zone. I'm VP for Business Development and Sales. I report to a CEO for Zone. And really interesting things, from the other speakers on what we can do to accelerate contactless payments adoptions. He touched on trust or customer behavior as one element. And most times when you pose this question, when you ask people, okay, what's really hindering this, right? You tend to get that sort of feedback, customer behavior, trust, and all of that. But for me, I think I'm going to expand on that. I think it's a couple of things. It's a myriad of issues. If I were to categorize them, I would say there are three fundamental issues. One being regulatory clarity. The second being interoperable infrastructure, which is where blockchain plugs in. And the last being trust in customer behavior. Okay. Fortunately for us, the CBN has been magnanimous enough to, put out to sort of clear the air on the ambiguity assets formerly obtained with contactless payments. Before, as operators in the space, you weren't so sure what you could do. Could you issue NFC-enabled cards? Banks did issue NFC-enabled cards, but getting those cards accepted at merchant locations became an issue. And the reason for that was because there was no regulatory clarity. Where was there going to be a liability shift? If someone takes your card, uses it as a POS terminal, and you say you didn't authorize that transaction, where would that liability shift? Is it going to be on you? Is it going to be on the merchant? So you had issues with that, but thankfully, there's now regulatory clarity that has cleared the air on that. Then when we talk about the customer behavior, we'll talk about trust. Nigeria is a very peculiar market. Our current demographics, about 18 to 45, about 70% of our population lie between the ages of 18 and 45 years. So what that means is you're going to see a significant adoption of new and emerging technologies in this market, perhaps even more than any other market you look at in the Africa region, right? Look at what's happening in crypto. Nigeria is the number 2 market globally, not in Africa. Right, globally, as it obtains with crypto adoption and utilizing it for payments, only second to India, more than other Western nations, and all of that. If and the same thing you get, even if you try to be with autonomous vehicles or self-driving vehicles, people will tell you the same thing, that are you sure we can trust it? But I disagree. I don't think that's the issue. And this then brings me down to infrastructure and how this impacts on trust. So when I take my card and I go to a merchant location and I do a transaction, what is the expected behavior? What am I expecting to get? Say that transaction fails upstream. And I'm sure everyone here, you've used your card, you've done a transaction, you didn't get a successful response, you will actually go to your bank. That in itself brings a trust deficit for you. They now begin to imagine when you begin to go, lower to the bottom of the pyramid. We're trying to unlock value that's currently locked there as cash. You're going into a bus, you want to make payment, you want to be able to use your card to make that payment. You typically cannot insert your card into a POS terminal, and this is where NFC or contactless enabled payment comes in. And that's the work we're solving for at Zone with blockchain technology. We're able to harness the fundamental properties of blockchain, providing decentralization for how these transactions are processed. That's one. Providing better transparency and ensuring that records cannot be tampered with at any point in time, providing better experience to financial service providers on how they can deliver this as a payment method to the last mile. So yeah.
Thank you so much. And I really like what you started with about regulatory clarity. I really like that. And that takes me to the question I'm about to ask you, Damilola. From your legal standpoint, what are some of the biggest regulatory gaps you see now that could slow down the adoption of contactless payments in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you. I think really from a legal perspective, we have what we need.
Okay.
I wouldn't really say that there are gaps. I say that because I think Ifeanyi mentioned, and I think Francis has also said, in 2023, CBN has issued the guidelines for contactless payments. In 2021, I think, or 2020, CBN also released a framework for QR code acceptance and payments. So what we need from a legal perspective, which we didn't used to have in relation to all in the earlier days of fintech adoption and the uprise, we have that now for contactless. So I don't think that the issues, and if you listen to Mr. Ojo's presentation and Mr. Obasi, I don't really think the issues holding us back are legal or regulatory. I think the framework is there. It's for the market participants to now use them. But what I want to talk about is a bit more on awareness. We've spoken about trust, and just not to pile on trust, but just to say that, trust is a two-way street. When you look at particularly those who will use contactless payments, the customer and most likely the merchant, right? Today, if you want to use your card, because you have to, it's chip and pin technology, you have to insert your card, you have to input your PIN. Your PIN is known to only you. So right, that this payment cannot happen unless I authorize it in normal circumstances. But that's not quite the same case. And then the merchant also knows that you've put your card into my POS and you've input your PIN. So I'm and I can see approved or successful. So it's a two-way street, but with contactless, you don't quite have that. You just tap or you hover, as you say. How do I know the money is in? And that's from a merchant point of view. Yeah, you get an alert and all of that, but what if it doesn't get it immediately? Can I conclude the transaction on that basis? And then there's awareness. Now, Francis spoke about the demographic that's driving the age 14 to 45. They are digital natives. Well, a large part of that group are digital natives, and they will be at the forefront of adopting technology, right? And I think that group, that demographic, will be the ones to take contactless payment, to jumpstart contactless payment adoption. And I think their concerns around trust are not as high as they are as others. In the office, I talk to my team. They are the ones that educate me on some of the things that I can do with Apple Pay and things like that. So trust is not so much a problem. I think it's really awareness. People know that they have the cards that are contactless enabled, but can they use it now? I think people will use it, particularly that demographic. And I know some of us digital migrants and the dinosaurs in the room will take some time to get over the line. They still want to make sure that they get value for a transaction that they initiate. But I think awareness is something, and I think most participants have emphasized operation, technology, some of these other issues. But in terms of building an awareness and letting people know you can actually carry out a transaction using contactless technology is something I think once you start, as I just said, go to Unilag, go to Lasso, I think it will be on the uptick from there.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I think that speaks to the fact that the younger generation today is typically digitally inclined. But then we still have the elderly people who run businesses. We still have those people who, even their day-to-day life is not exactly digitally inclined, let alone bringing them into contactless. You understand? And so it begs the question, what are we going to do about those people? And that's why I'm coming back to you, Kolawole, to say that you work with small businesses. Connectivity, device cost, fraud fears, these are all valid fears of owners of small businesses. Now, how do you help merchants, or how do you plan to help merchants overcome these barriers for them to confidently go contactless?
Yeah, I think if you look at the story of card payments in Nigeria generally, and right from time when it started, right, there was also the lack of trust, fears of fraud, and all that. And at money points, right, reliability is the core of everything that we do, right? And because of the trust and the trust our merchants have built in us, right, they are sure that whatever transaction they do in money points is safe, is secure, right, and is reliable. And so, taking that into contactless, anything that we do, anything that we deploy, we are bringing that same mindset of reliability into it, right? So this will mean that we can sort of move that trust that they have in our traditional POS transactions and take it into contactless, knowing that this payment method is also safe, is also secure, and they can rely on it. I think that is, that's what.
Do you also think it will take some time to bring them on board, or you think that the moment it comes to them, they would accept it straight up?
I think typically Nigerians tend to be skeptical, right, about new things, right? So there might still be that initial skepticism. Sorry. But then, as the situation arises, people start to adopt new things. It might be slow, right? But people start to adopt them. It's the same way COVID helped us to start accepting transfers as payment methods without people raising eyebrows. I think some years back, if you're going to do a transfer, people tend to be skeptical that is it trying to scam me or something like that. But now it's almost instinctive, right? You want to make a payment, just transfer to them. So I think it's going to be the same thing with contactless. There might be that initial skepticism, but eventually and slowly, as the situation arises, right, people start to accept these methods, and before you know it, it becomes a normal thing, and everybody's just used to it.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'll come to you, what is the place of partnerships? And by partnerships, I mean public-private partnerships. What is the place of partnerships in achieving contactless payments in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you very much. I think for contactless payments, partnership is at the center of it. For me, partnership is like a fulcrum of payment. Because today you have issuers, banks, fintechs, MMOs, you have the acquirers, you have the card schemes, you have processors, you also have the regulators like CBN. And no single entity can, on its own or in isolation, can say that they can offer contactless payments on their own. So there needs to be that partnership between different entities for any payment, not just contactless, for any payment to work. There needs to be partnership. So for me, partnership is at the center of payment, because all these entities are unique in the services they render. By the time you start leveraging the uniqueness of those services, they can come together and create a wonderful product that the users can adopt, right? So that partnership is really at the center. of contactless payment or payments in general.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'll move on to you, Francis. The last time you said that the essence of blockchain is to improve transparency, security, and all of that. Now, it begs the question, how do you teach this or tell this to the layman? How do you explain to them that with blockchain, you're more secure, this is more transparent? How do you do that?
Okay, doing that, I would typically when you're introducing anything new, you don't focus on the technology itself, you focus on the output of that technology. I'll delve away from blockchain for a bit. Okay. Artificial intelligence has been there for 3 decades. Yeah. We only started getting very involved in using it when ChatGPT rolled out. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing now with blockchain. I'm not sure how many of us here are very conversant with the payment industry and what's happening. There's now a lot of rave around stable coins and all of that. That in itself is not very new technology. But because people can now see how that sort of accelerates payments, particularly for cross-border payments, they're beginning to key into it. It's the same thing with contactless payments as well. When I know that if I want to go on a bus or I want to go on a ferry or, I just have a payment use case that typically would take too long to do using a chip and PIN card. And if I were to do that, via contactless devices, it could be a mobile device or anything, I'm going to get better experience for both myself and me, the provider of the service. I would want to key into this. But, as Ifeanyi mentioned, the way the payments industry operates as a value chain, you typically can have a lot of closed loop systems. You're going to have different parties. You have aggregators who interplay with orchestrators, who interplay with infrastructure providers, who interplay with people who serve the merchants and the consumers, as it were, right? Underpinning all of this as a fundamental layer of this value chain is payment infrastructure that everything runs through. If you have a mobile device and you have indicated to your bank that you want to be able to make payments via contactless means, your bank A needs to be able to communicate efficiently with Bank B and ensure that nothing is going to happen to that transaction across the value chain. This is what we've been able to deliver with blockchain technology. Now, for some of you who may not know, at Zone, what we've been able to do with blockchain technology is essentially connect every financial institution, 70% of the financial institutions in Nigeria, to a blockchain infrastructure to facilitate payments. So this is essentially a decentralized network. What it means is your bank, say for instance, MoneyPoint can send a transaction directly to PalmPay and they could do the same thing in reverse without having to go into a centralized intermediary. This significantly improves of the reliability that you find with payment systems. It becomes very important when you begin to talk about rolling out a new payment method like contactless payments, because it's easier today when you use your card to do a transaction at a payment point. You don't get a successful response. It's easy for you to go to a bank. When you use a contactless device to do that and nothing happens, it will feel like magic both for you, the payer, and the receiver, because there's no way for you to prove you even did anything, right? So it then necessitates that we need to have state-of-the-art payment infrastructure that can drive this, and this is what we've been able to deliver our blockchain.
Thank you so much. Now back to our lawyer. So let's talk about breaches, data breaches. Now we want to go contactless, but how do we protect data against breaches and ensure that consumers aren't left exposed? How do we do that?
Thanks. So that's actually a key question I was asking myself in terms of, before I answer your question, today, if I go to a merchant outlet, I have different options to pay. Okay. I can pay by cash, I can swipe my card or tap, insert my card and put my PIN, I can do a transfer. So why should I opt for the contactless option? I'm paying easily today, right? Is it going to be cheaper? Maybe. If PalmPay and MoneyPoint tell us it will be cheaper, right? Maybe I'll go with contactless option, but why do I have to? if my card is enabled, is enabled, NFC enabled, and I have to think about the risk of data skipping or data scanning. Someone will scan my card, intercept, and then clone it. I don't have that risk with my regular card. So the question coming to the question you ask, how do we deal with data breaches? Because you make my card is becoming more accessible effectively, or my information is becoming more accessible, not just my card, but my information behind my card is becoming more accessible. That's something that we need to think about. And that's something that the ecosystem needs to think about. How do we deal with that? Today, we have a data protection framework in country that protects personal data, right? And that's fine. It protects all your personal information, including sensitive data that includes biometric and all other kind of information, which is what is relevant for contactless payment, authorization, and authentication of transactions. But we need to think carefully about how we deal with the additional risks that come with contactless technology. Do we need to think about what tweaks we make to our data protection framework? Do we need to think about but those protections are already there. They were done, and the law is written to protect the category of information that contactless technology rests on. But the question is, the risks remain. The risks remain, and we need to think about how we deal with some of those risks and how we incentivize use. I said adoption is not a problem, but how do we incentivize people to use it in spite of those risks? But I think today we have a very robust data protection framework. The data privacy awareness is on the rise. We need to manage customer information, sensitive information. That's there already. The NDPC is doing a great work in terms of making data controllers and data processors aware of their responsibilities and their obligations. But as we chest out and look towards contactless technology in the future, we need to think about how we incentivize, this is part of this awareness story, how we incentivize users to, how we assure them that the technology is safe. It may come at an additional cost. I was reading an article yesterday about some manufacturers of leather goods now, including an aluminum core in their wallet, so that if you have a contactless card, a contactless enabled card, and you put it in your wallet, it prevents data scanning. Okay. That comes at a cost. So maybe the banks, as they roll out those cards, they need to include a little sleeve that you put your card in to protect it. Because that's how you protect data against data breaches. Okay. But that has a cost. I'm going to think about that. But those are some of the issues we need to know.
Thank you so much. I think that was really important to tell. Now, back to you, Kolawole. How do you think? Now, it's important to prioritize business sustainability. I mean, every business is out to be sustainable. Now, in as much as we're trying to bring in contactless payments, we're trying to drive adoption, how can we do this while also maintaining sustainability? Because as he said, these things will come at a cost. So how can we do it and still remain sustainable?
So from a merchant acquiring perspective, you would see that a lot of POSs, from Moneypoint's perspective, right, already have contactless enabled. They have these chips in them, right? So it's not like we're going to be replacing hardware. Okay. It's just sort of enabling an additional payment option on an already existing device. So the experience is going to be similar to your traditional POS transaction. Just that in this case now, it's contactless. You're not inserting your card into a POS. You're probably just scanning or tapping, right? So it doesn't look like it's going to come at any other additional cost. It's going to be extremely similar to the experience we have today.
We have already.
Yeah. But that being said, there's also an opportunity for people in the industry leaders to help look at reviewing things like the transaction limits that contactless have today. I think contactless payment has a very low limit. I'm not sure of the exact amount. I think 15,000 per transaction, and cumulative for a day about 50,000 naira, right? So there's also an opportunity to review all that, so that merchants can sort of do much more, right? Because today, if someone is trying to do a large transaction, maybe even go to supermarket for like grocery shopping for the month or something like that, right? And looking at the current economic condition, it's very likely you spend above the current single transaction limit, right? So there's also the opportunity to review all these things so that it is also profitable for the merchants. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Now, I would like to know, I know the last question to you was about collaboration and partnerships. So I'd like to know, for us to drive contactless payments, what particular entities are going to be in this collaboration? Now, I know we have telcos, banks, fintechs, and all of that, but can you speak more to the particular entities that would be a part of this collaboration?
Okay, I think like I mentioned during my last response, entities like issuers, card issuers,
Yes.
we have banks, we have MMOs and fintechs issuing cards today. They are one stakeholder. They have acquirers. They have the card schemes like the Visa, the Verve, the Afrigo. They're also the regulator. CBN is also a critical stakeholder here. And we also have the processors, like the likes of InterSwitch and UPSL. These are key stakeholders in achieving any kind of payment you want to embark on. And these guys can equally collaborate in many areas to achieve contactless payments. They can collaborate in the area of infrastructure to make sure that these technologies are out there. Because like I mentioned before, no single entity can really work on contactless and churn it out. There has to be a collaboration. You can also collaborate in the area of consumer education. I think all the speakers here today have mentioned that is a key issue. I think there's need for industry stakeholders to work more on educating users. Because like we've mentioned already, some people don't even know that the cards they have in their pockets are contactless enabled. But majorly, where we have the major issues are the acquiring devices. A lot of them out there are not contactless enabled. So we need that customer education. We need that sensitization to let users know that contactless is out there and is workable. They can also collaborate in the area of reaching out to the unbanked. Today in the hinterlands where payments have not really gone so deep, and here there's also where the telcos come in as another key stakeholder, because the telcos have the reach, they have the coverage that we need. And you see, if a telco and a fintech is partnering to propagate payments, be it contactless or ordinary payment, any other form of payment, that they can now help reach out to those guys in those areas and be assured that payments circulate the way it needs to do.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. Now to Francis, and this is a really important question because we would understand when I say the question. So now, given the challenges we face, power supply, network infrastructure, and all of that, do you think we are ready for contactless payments?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's a short answer. I don't think there was ever any time when any new innovation was rolled out that we were really ready for. We weren't ready to use mobile phones. Okay. Some people in government thought against it. They were like, no, Nigerians can't afford it. Don't bring in mobile phones. We know what the prices for SIM cards were at the time. The market wasn't ready for POS devices when we began to roll it out. Okay. I can remember a little over a decade and a half ago, if you take a POS terminal to a merchant store, the same place you placed it is where you come and see it 1 month after. It has accumulated, it has gathered dust. That's what used to happen. I'm telling you, yes. A whole lot of things needed to happen behind the scenes to make this effective, to make this work. I would not want to focus on what the challenges are. There are challenges, there would always be challenges. Challenges haven't stopped us from using our handheld devices, our mobile phones. It's not stopped us from being one of the most viable payment markets in Africa. And it's also not going to stop us or hinder us from rolling out contactless. In fact, the way I see it, from a resource consumption perspective, it actually requires lesser to propagate contactless payments than it is for you to, facilitate payments via the traditional digital means. So Nigeria has never been more ready. We have the right demographic. We have the right participants. We attract the most investments in this industry for payments, in this region for payments. And we also have regulatory backing as well. So we've never been more ready for this.
Ready. Yeah. That's good. Thank you so much. And finally to you, Damilola, I know you've spoken about how ready we are, how prepared we are, how we have everything we need and all of that. Now, I want to ask, do you think our KYC and AML rules, do you think they are still applicable now? Because we all know they were designed in a different era. So do you think today, with what we're trying to achieve now, do you think they're still relevant? Or we'll need some tweaks, some adjustments, and even maybe a overall overhauling? What do you think?
Okay, I mean, KYC, AML, checks and verification will always be at the heart of anything related to the financial services sector and payments, because they help the market participants understand the customer behavior, particularly when you talk about contactless technology, because if you understand the customer, you then know what's out of character for that customer, and that makes it easy to detect a suspicious transaction, and you can flag, you can reduce your false positives. So it's absolutely important that we continue to have AML and KYC verification and compliance. Of course, with contactless technology, you need to step that up a bit, because you need to now think about how you authenticate and verify transactions. In the UK, the last time I was there, I know that when you use your card contactlessly, every third or fourth transaction you need to authenticate, which is you need to input your PIN or verify somehow. And so even in a contactless world or in contactless scenario, you still need
display some of the myths that have hampered contactless payments adoption, as well as get some recommendations on some of the ways to address some issues and risks that we'll speak to. So I think my first question is for Adetomiwa, and it's really just based on your experience, what are the vulnerable points that you see in the growing contactless payment system? Do you think those vulnerable points are at the device level? Is it the network or somewhere else? What are those vulnerable points that you've noticed?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. In Nigeria, the contactless payment landscape is evolving every day, and vulnerability spread across the different levels as the device level, the network level, and the entire back end where you have a lot of the updates and all these things going on. So a lot of companies have put several measures in place to ensure that their devices are secure, the network is secure, and the backend is secure. But where I would say a lot of vulnerabilities occur are mostly third-party integration with third-party, where you have companies integrating with partners and other maybe financial institutions, or financial institutions integrating with other fintechs to allow these systems be consumed by other users. So you see a lot of vulnerabilities in this area where you have things like device spoofing and all these things, where systems are vulnerable, even as much as the companies or the fintechs have made themselves secure, their partners might not be doing the same thing. So you have a lot of things that need to be put in place to ensure that a 360 security system is available, both from not just the device, the network, and the back end, but third-party integrations with partners and all this. And so regular and maybe quarterly, or as the case may be, the organization vulnerability and penetration testing should be carried out within their system to watch out for systems that are vulnerable, devices that are vulnerable. Awareness should be carried out with third-party companies to ensure that they understand what it takes to what is needed to be secure at their own end, in as much as you are secure at your own end. So I believe if all these things are put in place, vulnerabilities will be minimized, and
the seamless and the confidence for customers to use contactless payment will be achieved in the ecosystem.
Okay, thank you so much. So from what I hear you say, there's vulnerability at the device level, but mostly really around third-party integration. So I think my next question will be to Edward. You are the Chief Risk Officer at eTransact. So what are those new risk patterns that are emerging with the rise of contactless payments, and what risk management approaches are evolving to address this?
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. I want to permit me to lay a foundation. Sure. I don't want to stand on the assumption that everybody is a technical person. So when it comes to information security, right, there are two pillars. Okay, so you have what is called security and safety. Now, my brother has spoken extensively on security. So for instance, I give you a typical example. In this place, you have $1 million. You are trying to secure. Around this building, you have electric fence, you have security guard, you have CCTV, you have all security, you have padlock everywhere, right? So you've secured that money, right? That asset. That when people are trying to intrude, there is security guard to stop him, there is CCTV, there's alarm, there is padlock, right? That is security. But again, there's a vital component of information security called safety, which is where most attacks are coming from today. You can have the best firewall, which is security, VPN, security, yet you can be compromised. Now, imagine where someone from DHL comes to the gate. The security guard is there. He doesn't allow anybody to go in. And the guy says, I'm coming from the presidency. I have a letter for the guy who is guarding the money in this place. And it's a cited presidency, right? And he gives him access. And he knocks at the door and tells the guy, someone from presidency. I said, oh, bring him. And he comes in here. The security guy goes back, right? Then while he's talking with Mr. Peter, who is guarding that $1 million, he brings out a gun. $1 million or your life. And he takes that money, walks out, right? And he wasn't caught. That is safety. What he has simply done is that he was able to play on the intelligence of human being to penetrate. So most attack you see today is coming from the fact that most people, human beings, because human beings will remain the weakest link within the value ecosystem. This is where we've seen a lot of things happening. As a matter of fact, every day you see about 3.4 billion spam phishing emails being sent out. So why am I saying this? A lot of people have implemented security, VPN, firewall, fantastic. But the question is, why do we still keep having penetration? Why do why the company keep getting breached? The major factor is the safety component, which is human factor. This is an aspect we need to invest more. The previous panelists spoke about awareness, right? Very, very important. So if you must address, the risks that comes with digital payments, the first thing you must understand, number one, is the psychology of these cyber criminals. And the major psychology is in the place of taking advantage of human traits, human weaknesses. One of them is fear. Two is greed. You saw an email from somewhere, it said you've won visa to Dubai. You never apply for visa, and you're asked to click to claim your visa, and you click. The moment you click, their system is overtaken by malicious code. That your card details, everything is being captured and sent remotely to the hacker. So the first point is that you must understand the psychology of hackers and their techniques. Two, I think the previous panelists also spoke on that. I mean, collaboration. We can't overemphasize it. What has happened is that people are addressing risks, cybersecurity, at silo level. The point is that when it comes to business, by default, we can all compete. But there are certain aspects of our businesses that we cannot compete. The only option is collaboration. And cybersecurity and risks is that aspect. So it's important that we know that when it comes to issue of threat, issue of cybersecurity, issue of risks, we cannot compete. The only option is collaboration. From regulators, from private sectors, from public sectors, from government, everybody must collaborate if we must address the risks that comes with digital payment. Then thirdly, I think we need to learn the system of being proactive, because these hackers are also thinking ahead of you. Like they say, if you want to catch a thief, you must understand what? the trick of what? The thief. So you must understand the trick and you must be proactive. Proactiveness from the perspective of process. You must have processes, risk management processes that govern how you manage risks. Proactiveness from people's perspective. You must train people. Because when it comes to safety, human beings will keep falling victim. So you must keep training people. And that is why I want to give a big kudos to Business Day for this kind of section, because it's a big one. Okay? We must collaborate to train people. Awareness, education is the only way to minimize people's, victim activities. And of course, technology point of view. Okay? We must leverage on things like AI. Okay? And machine learning. Okay? For instance, you have a card. Someone has cloned your card. And you're seeing transactions from China, from India, from US at the same time on the same card. Human beings cannot, if you have 1 million of such kind of transaction, no human being is able to analyze. But with AI and machine learning, you're able to, have some predictive model or pattern that you can set, and those can actually help you detect things on time and address, the risks. Thank you.
Thank you. Very insightful. Thank you. So I think I'll move on to Goodness, my seat partner. So what types of attacks should Nigerian merchants and consumers be most worried about when it comes to contactless payments?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you to Business Day for this session. One of the things I like to do in starting out this conversation is to try to separate the myths from the facts. Most of us here who watch action movies, that you see all these cyber guys, they'll say with your phone you can clone, you start copying people's data. You see a guy in the airport, he's collecting data from far away. He says he has collected a lot of data and moved on. The truth is that what you see in the movies stays in the movies. It is not real. And when we discuss contactless payment, it's important to begin to separate what is the myth from what is the fact. In reality, cloning someone's card from a mile away is not possible. That is a myth. It is not possible, thanks to the EMV type of cards that are being produced today. Even the NFC technology today operates, it has a range that it operates. And with the range that it operates, a person long distance cannot even carry out that cloning. So that's not possible. Okay? That is the fact. Now, what is the reality? The reality is that just like my friend Edward had mentioned, the issues that we're having today from contactless payment is still the same issue that we have always had from contact payments. And that is the issue with regards to the human element within the technology. All right. QR phishing, what is called quishing. I like that word. It's cute. Quishing. It's something that is now becoming prevalent, and our security and innovation team, my firm, they actually carried out a research across the Nigerian payment ecosystem, and they found that QR phishing is something that is underlooked. So QR phishing is something that we need to start to pay attention to, because the way that works is that as we speak today, in all of your phones, your bank mobile applications, you have an option to scan to pay with QR codes. That happens. But we have also seen the prevalence of tampering of QR codes, and that happens too. So you can tamper with the QR codes, and rather than paying with the approved way of payment, it takes you to somewhere else for you to carry out that particular transaction. There is also the prevalence of reverse engineering on mobile applications. We talked about tap to pay, and we always use tap to pay with regards to cards. But in reality, we can also use tap to pay with even devices. Your applications, the mobile applications that exist from the banks. And you see, the problem now with the mobile applications is that we are beginning to see a lack of distrust from the customers, majorly because of the things we are hearing based on the hacks that happen to our mobile applications. Just recently, one of the major fintechs, we're having a conversation with them. So they're able to reverse engineer their mobile application, host the mobile app, the reverse engineer, create a digital clone of that mobile application on the Play Store, not on the Google Play Store, just on the Play Store, a third-party store, and began to redirect users to go and download that particular application for them to be able to carry out transactions. All right. So again, we are seeing this. These are trends. The phishing of QR phishing that is happening, and also the prevalence of mobile application hacks, especially with regard to the mobile applications, because people are using more and more mobile applications to carry out transactions. So this is the pattern that we are seeing with regards to this contactless payment we mentioned, and again, which is going to have a higher increase in the number of cybersecurity attacks we're seeing.
Thank you, Goodness, for breaking that down. And I like that you spoke about the difference between facts and fiction. What you see in the movies will not necessarily happen in real life. And I think it's also good to mention that in relation to contactless payment, the CBN actually has a maximum, the contactless payment terminals are only supposed to be enabled up to, I think, 2 centimeters. So it can't be 1 mile away and cloning will happen. So I think my next question will be for Kelechi. And it's just based on your experience in number, what are those specific security layers that have been introduced to ensure that contactless transactions are fast as well as fraud resistant?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to BusinessDay for putting this together. So at Number, what we've done, first and foremost, these NFC devices, the NFC model, the chip itself, right? It's secured at the OS level, all right? And that means that card data, it's not exposed, can never be exposed to the device. And, something called tokenization is also what we've embarked on, right? So cards are uniquely encrypted, right, with private keys, ensuring that these cards cannot be schemed or, cloned. Something else we've done is that we've made our app and, the application, right, let me say, tamper-proof. So you can't run our application on jailbroken or jailbroken phones, right? Also, we employ real-time risk and monitoring, on our transactions. So we actively monitor, transactions are processed, and then we flag any that seems a bit fraudulent. As my my co-speaker said, right, we have transactions coming in from China, from Dubai at the same time, right? So we have models that check the IP addresses, the locations of these transactions where they are emitting from. And if it seems a bit funny, our system just automatically flags it and reroutes it through, manual checks, and, sometimes just block it off. And then we check with the initiator or the, initiator of this transaction. So what's going on? Why is this looking a bit funny? So these are some of the things that we've implemented at Number, by my team to ensure that contactless transactions are fast and also secure. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelechi. I think I will move on to Adetomiwa. So there has been much ado about security by design and just ensuring that the contactless payment terminals, the cards, are secure by design. So I think just using RedTech as a case study, how can the reps or banks, fintechs, payment providers, etc., bake security into their platforms and cards in such a way, that's from day one as you are iterating the product? How can you ensure that from day one, that product or card is secure?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. So I would say at RedTech, we've implemented what we call a secure by design governance framework, whereby right from the design phase, before it even gets to implementation, security is already being thought through in the design phase to implementation and proper before even rollout of the integration, either with financial technology solution companies or financial institutions or other partners. Then another thing is implementing or integrating with international best practice standards like the PCI DSS framework. This requirement from the PCI DSS frameworks helps to enforce proper security in the design phase or in the implementation phase of these integrations with, when it comes to contactless payment or any form of integration whatsoever between organizations like ours, RedTech, and other fintechs and financial institutions. This also ensures that security key injections, end-to-end user authentication, multi-factor authentication, and all these different requirements from the PC, mostly the PCI DSS framework, is implemented when you are rolling out some of these design features or new upgrades on either the devices, the network, or any maybe whether integrations with third-party solutions. So this is very, very, very important. And when you're working with manufacturers and partners, all these requirements are also very important to ensure that they understand and at their own end, they are practicing the same thing that you are doing, because it's like I said earlier, it's wanting for you to put the best features at your own end in terms of security, encryption, and your partners are not doing the same thing. And it's very good that the regulatory bodies are enforcing everybody to get some of these standards implemented, some of these frameworks implemented within their own organization. So security is everybody's responsibility as an organization, whether a financial institution or a fintech or a bank or a manufacturing, even a customer. They understand security and they take it very serious. Like my co-speaker said, customers or human beings are the weakest link. You might put the best security apparatus in place, but one way or the other, you find you might even be doing your VAPTs and security checks monthly to ensure that you are not vulnerable. But if customers are not aware, they don't know, and forums like this are not there for people, for professionals in industry to talk about and enlighten people and give them that certain confidence and let them know that security also is a part of their own it's part of their own responsibility as well. Then it's something that everybody should take and we should all take notice about. Thank you.
Thank you. Security is really everyone's responsibility within the value chain. So I think I would ask Edward, what do you now say to people who say that, or there's this sentiment that ensuring stronger security is essentially slows down transaction growth in the short term? And I would like, at each transact, how do you balance transaction speed, transaction growth with fraud detection, and just ensuring that there is a balance between fast adoption as well as fraud protection?
Thank you for that beautiful question. If you permit me, I just want to add to what he said. Security, at each transact, we call it security by design and by default. And like he said, is everybody's responsibility. From the top management, before we want to embark on any project, right? The top management has to give that approval. Looking at that item from business angle, from risk angle, right? We've not even started designing. So we look at security. So at the end of the day, what that does is that you're integrating security at every stage of that development. So by design and by default, you're not waiting until the product is live before you begin to think of risks or security. So it's called a risk-based thinking approach, okay, which I think we should, adopt, right? Because at the end of the day, it's just like, I don't think anybody here can survive for 3 months without breathing and without eating. It's not possible. So in today's era, there is no business that can survive without adequate consideration for security and privacy. Now, back to the question you asked me, how do we ensure, right, that
balancing
you balance transaction, security, and all of that. Now, the point is, this is the truth. There is no system that is 100% secure. What we simply do is that we try to make the system harder, okay, to make it more harder for hackers to penetrate in. Because at the end of the day, if your system is, if you implement security end to end, everywhere is secured, it becomes unusable. Because again, when it comes to information security, there are 3 major components: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. The system must be available for usage. So what we do is that we also have this business card we wear. So we come to the table, we discuss what is the best and the minimum requirement you can implement from security point of view. So with that, you're able to balance functionality and security. If at the end of the day you move everything to security, then functionality will suffer. If at the end of the day you move everything to functionality, which you've seen in this ecosystem, the system is usable, everybody is coming, there's no security, then there'll be a lot of fraud. And that will also create issues within the ecosystem. So there has to be a balance between functionality, security, and of course, ease of use. And that requires collaboration again that requires, conversations. What do we do? What can we do? Okay, then we can test it, then we can roll out. We do that at each runs out. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. So I think we'll move slightly just to focus on the agents, the merchants, and my question is for Kelechi. So considering the massive growth of mobile money agents and informal merchants in Nigeria, how do we ensure that the cybersecurity standards that we've all spoken about actually trickles down to those small players? So you must have done everything right at number, but how do you ensure that the persons who are manning the terminals or are manning the whatever device it is, those standards are also implemented at that level?
Okay, so ensuring that these agents adhere to the standards, again, it's education. At Number, we spend a lot of money on agent education, right? Through our social media platforms, through in-app education, pop-ups, even quizzes as well, right? In our app, a quiz can just pop up. Will you give your token, your OTP to someone else? And you have to say yes or no. If you pick yes, we'll tell you why the answer is wrong. So things like that. So we spend a lot of money and a lot of time thinking about security, and truly, humans are the weakest link, right? One of the fraud cases we had, looking at the fraud cases we've had, it comes down to our agents giving away OTP, right? Someone calls you from somewhere, hi, I am XY, social engineering from XYZ. You just received something on your phone, we want to help you do this, do that, please. Can you give us the token, right? And, a lot of our agents used to fall for that, but when we start spending a lot of money on education and, teaching, public awareness about the dangers of giving away your tokens, password, etc., that the rate at which the fraud used to happen, reduced drastically. So at the end of the day, humans are the weakest link, and social engineering, is a big problem. And with education, all of that is taken care of.
Okay, thank you. So we're fast running out of time, but I think we can move to goodness. So considering that Nigeria we're still in the early days of contactless payments, are there lessons that you can share from other markets, similarly situated markets like maybe India or Kenya, that we can adopt here to ensure or push more adoption?
All right, thank you. Well, I'm just going to share two things. One is from the area of governance. I'm going to speak about this from the reports that we're going to release. This is just like a sneak peek into what I'm going to release. The state of the cybersecurity in the Africa for Q1. One of the things that we see is that the risk index, especially for Nigeria, is really, really high, and it's getting higher, even when compared to other African countries like Kenya, Morocco, and the rest. We have presence in Kenya market, and we see that one of the things that they prioritize is cybersecurity governance at that top level. All right, and that's something that we need to learn here. CBN, for example, are the forefront of putting in place regulations for the market, for the payment ecosystem, even for the contact. And they have put a lot of regulations. In fact, there are way more regulations than people. I don't know. So I think now is the time not to introduce new regulations, but to begin to create what we call business as usual. So there has to be a paradigm shift from just using those regulations as a tick in the box compliance kind of checklist to a more business as usual kind of security approach. All right. So the question should not just be about, do you have PCI DSS, for example, but are you beginning to actually implement this security principles which the PCI DSS helps you to achieve? Now that's exactly how this thing is going to work. We need to be able to, and again, this has to come from top. We see that in the Kenya market, we see that in India market, how they are beginning to create cybersecurity governance and focusing, drifting away from just throwing around regulations, PCI DSS, ISO, and what have you, to now begin to implement proper security. So when they come to your organization, when they come for assessment, it's not just about ticking the box, but about looking for whether those security principles are actually carried out as business as usual practice within your organization. And that's one. And the second thing is something that we have also seen as a gap within our market. In the early days, most transactions that we see, that we do today, we used to use the payment service provider from abroad or outside. Now we're beginning to domicile payments. So we have a lot of people who are coming up, fintechs and all of that. When it comes to cybersecurity, we are still seeing that for us to be able to combat the cybersecurity threat, we're having to go outside there to go and purchase cybersecurity solutions. Some of the cybersecurity solutions we are purchasing from outside there, one may not have the full context of the actual risks that are domiciled within Africa or within Nigeria, and that's a problem. I'll give you a situation. We talk about human awareness, all right? Human awareness, and we need to educate our users. We have a lot of cybersecurity awareness platforms that exist today, but you will find that there is a gap. For example, Nigeria data protection. You'll find out that most of the cybersecurity awareness platforms do not have the Nigeria Data Protection Regulation Awareness Program or module within them. All right? And that's a problem because we can go out there and go and begin to import cybersecurity solutions. But again, are they really resolving the critical, our own local cybersecurity risks? And we see that play out in what we have in Kenya markets. We see that in the India markets, where they are now creating cybersecurity solutions for their own markets. And that's something we at Ethnos, we started doing 3 years ago. We started saying, how can we create cyber? So, we have had experience over time, all right, deploying the solutions, implementing frameworks. But what are the gaps? So we said to say, okay, let us implement cybersecurity solutions for the African markets where we have presence in Nigeria, in Ghana, and in Kenya, to begin to look at how we can solve the African issues, the African cybersecurity issues here in Nigeria, here in Kenya, here in Ghana. All right, we came up with the Acastilon, for example, which we're using to carry out cybersecurity awareness, door-to-door smishing simulations, phishing simulations. But again, you notice that one of the major things about the solution when compared to other solutions is that it begins to look at, for each of these markets, we try to impact those local programs that actually contribute to empowering the people. So the Nigeria data protection, for example, the Kenya data protection regulation, for example. So the people begin to be aware of the actual cybersecurity risks that exist within that particular distance. So again, by putting in place proper governance, all right, trickling all the way from CBN and down to the various fintechs, payment players within the payment ecosystem, to implementing cybersecurity solutions that actually provide solutions to the cybersecurity risks, and not just something we just import, come and paste here. We actually contribute to making the this payment ecosystem a secure place.
Thank you, goodness, for that robust response. We are fast out of time, but I think I'll just ask this last question, and everyone on the panel can chip in, and that is, considering all that has been said around contactless payments today, and how far behind, so to speak, we are as a nation, what is one thing that you think we should change in order to drive adoption? This could be technology underpinning contactless cards and terminals, it could be laws, regulations, or it could even be societal behavior. So, goodness, since you're with the microphone, you can start.
Well, I would have said let us increase our money, the salaries that are being paid. All right. So for me, again, it just goes back to how we started this conversation. Technologies will continue to evolve. We were doing contact before. We are doing contactless now. We don't know what is going to happen in the future. But as we evolve, all right, whether it's payments even being powered by AI, machine learning, or what have you, we find out that there is still one element that is constant, and that element is the human within all of these things. When we begin to focus on how to solve the human elements, educate people, when we focus on technology, implement the right technology to combat the security solutions, and put a proper governance around the way we carry out the cybersecurity practice, I think that will be a game changer for this ecosystem.
Thank you. Yes, each person should chip in.
Okay, thanks. So, in addition to what you have said, historically speaking, what we've seen is that as technology advances, right, then the potential for bridges also increases. So what that simply does is that innovation, development in technology also creates loopholes, potential loopholes, so to say. So it means that we must be proactive, right? We must flow with the trend. And one of the recommendations I think that will really help the country is having a working regulatory sandbox. What that simply does is that you have a lot of fintechs, okay, creating solutions. So it's like a controlled environment where people can actually come in, okay, test their solutions without necessarily being afraid of being penalized. Okay, so at the end of the day, before it goes live, okay, people are able to test at that sandbox level. That can help us to become quicker. Then secondly, is that we need to collaborate. We kind of emphasize it, right? We need to collaborate. Every stakeholder. People should also learn from what BusinessDay has done, right? Let's awareness is an investment. Okay, because at the end of the day, if there's a breach in fintech A or bank A, if it's not mitigated, it will still go to bank B. So it becomes an ecosystem problem. So we need to collaborate. We need to have a centralized cybersecurity portal where we can actually share information, okay, and we can proactively detect and mitigate all of these risks. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. Kelechi.
Okay, something I want to say is that let's look at it from the angle of the customer who's going to, pay contactlessly. There's a fear of if someone takes my card, or my phone, and they can just tap, anywhere without my knowledge, right? I know today there's a transaction limit of 15,000 naira, depending on the FI, the financial institution. But something I think we need to consider is customization on the consumer's end, right? So I think for me, jobs to be done, like product management, right, or user journey, I think I should be able to customize how, I should be able to customize my contactless payments experience, right? I should, on my phone, if I'm from Access Bank or UBA or wherever bank or FI or even number, right, on the settings area, I should be able to say, okay, I want to, this is the limit that I want for my contactless payment. I can set it to 5,000 naira. I can even do 50,000 naira if I want. I can say, okay, I want payments for contactless, the frequency to be twice a day, or once a day. But basically, putting control back in the hands of the consumer will really, take away the fear of someone just authorizing transactions without my behalf. Right, because I know that I have said this and I'm conscious of, the experience, and I know that I'm in control. So basically the idea that I'm in control will give me more courage to adopt contactless payment solution as a consumer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think on a final note, I think there are 3 tiers to this thing. Like my gentleman said here, collaboration amongst all FIs and fintechs, because we don't want a problem in one fintech or one FI to become an ecosystem problem where it happens there, nobody's aware until it now spreads. Before everybody now start understand, okay, this is what you should have done, or this is what you need to do. So collaboration is very important. If we all understand what's going on in the ecosystem or what has happened somewhere, then we can prevent it from happening across the entire companies in the ecosystem. Then 2, awareness. Awareness is very important. We are from the side of the we have people who want to accept this technology, but they are really scared of, like, okay, I still have people who don't have mobile applications. I know people who don't use mobile application. Then how do you convince those people to use contactless payment? So I think awareness and education training is not just rolling out frameworks. The technology companies understand these things, but people who are going to consume them, do they have a clear understanding? Do they know that what is happening on TV might not necessarily happen real life, like what this gentleman just explained to us? So people need to be aware. People need to know that these things are secure. The organizations are secure. We are putting everything in place to make sure that their monies is secure, just like the basics of information security, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So we need to preach that. In as much as we understand it, we need to preach it to the consumers as well, for them to have confidence in using these technologies that we are rolling out, because trust me, in another 5 years' time, we might, or 2 years' time, or 5 years, we might not be talking contactless payment again. A new technology has come up, and we don't want to be chasing. We want to be moving as the technology is evolving. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ade Tomiwa. And I think this is a good place to start. Thank you, each and every one of you, for taking out the time for this panel. And I think if there's anything we leave with here is collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. It seems the more collaborative the players in the space are, the more we can address some of the issues and also raise more awareness on contactless payments. I don't know if there are any questions. Oh, fantastic. If you could just introduce yourself and then ask your question. I could calm down.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Toyi Bagbola. I want to thank the panelists, but we said so much about technology, prevention, and all that. But what I've not heard from us, both in this session and the previous session, is the response to rescue customers, during an attack or after an attack. I'll give you an instance. I lost my card. Let's even say I lost my card. Or somehow someone was able to scan it and get the PIN. And then the person, I got an alert as I'm here that 50,000 has been withdrawn. The time it takes for banks to take action to prevent further degradation of your account is too much. That's number one. Number two, how do we ensure? You've mentioned collaboration, which is fantastic. But the truth there is that currently, that collaboration does not exist. Even the systems that exist are not seamless. You go to your bank, and your bank will say the other bank which the money has gone to, you have to go and get a court order to stop or track and this. What are we doing to improve response when there has been a breach to rescue the customer or at least reduce the risk or, something like that? So basically, I've not heard us talk about that. And that is very, very important. I can give you an insight about that. Somebody talked about having a portal where we share experience in terms of the cyber risk so that others can be aware and then prevent. But also, we can also have a portal that is just a single tap, especially with the kind of ecosystem that we are building now, such that if my account is compromised, I can tap or go to a portal and put a tap on it to, alert the bank and alert the banking system so that while the money is even in transition, the other bank where the money is going could probably take an action to either withhold it or prevent the completion of that, the attack. So what's your insight on this? That's my take. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that question. I think you answered part of the question. So it's an ecosystem problem, and we need to solve our problem ourselves. Now, if you heard me when I started, I said that part of the problem is that we look at business from that competitive point of view, right? Which is how we started, right? But there are certain aspects that we cannot compete. The only option is collaboration. So it's a statement of fact, but the point is, how do we do it? But the truth is that there have been some level of collaboration in recent time, but we're not yet there. That's the truth about it, okay? So we need to keep encouraging ourselves, right? From regulator, from government, from private sector, from all the fintech to collaborate, because that is the way forward. Now, in terms of response, incident response, right? Which is very, very critical. Now, you can't rule out that part. It's called, maybe some people call it DRS, dispute resolution system, right? So yes, we need to encourage fintechs, banks to begin to have such kind of, portals that from my phone, I could just, like you described, like you said, just tap a button. Okay, there's something wrong with my system. I want to block my card. I want to block this transaction, and it can happen seamlessly. That also boils down to trust, that trust factor within the ecosystem. So I think for me, it's a problem, right? There have been some steps that have been taken, but let's keep preaching and let's keep taking further steps. I believe we'll get there one day. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, just to add to what he said. So I think a lot of FIs and a lot of fintechs right now, I think it boils down to what we've been saying, awareness. Because most FIs and most fintechs now on their mobile apps or their payment gateways or their POS, they all have either short codes or on the mobile app, you could reach out to your bank directly to block your card. And if you have, most transactions are usually card compromised, where you have people who their cards have been compromised and they use it to carry out nefarious transactions. So I think it, like I said, comes down to educating the public more. I think they need to do more on awareness to get people to understand how the process of doing all these things are there. So if, for example, like you said, somebody sees a 50,000 naira transaction on his account and it is not the one carrying out the transaction, the first thing they should do is tell people to keep calm. They don't go hysterical. Go to your mobile app or type this short code and you can block your card. Those codes are there on the mobile applications for most FIs and fintechs, even Money Point or even ours, even banks. You can just go there, click disable your card. Your card will be disabled immediately. It's mostly a CBN rule now. Your card will be disabled. So a lot of people just need to be aware of these codes, aware of these processes. Then the process of recovering your money back is another process. It is not. So people just need to know these processes, understand. And in most enlightened countries, people understand these processes. That's why they go to the banks. You see, a lot of people come to the country in December. They consummate transactions on their foreign card. They don't panic. They go back in 2 weeks' time. They go to their bank and they block the card and they ask for reversals and they get these reversals. So I've seen that happen. So people just need to know that and build confidence in their FIs and their fintechs and just ensure that they use these codes and these processes properly.
Okay, so this is a quick one. Basically, I want to be enlightened on the benefit of contactless. As far as I can see, it's only a time-saving benefit of around about 5 seconds, right? So if you look at potential time savings of around about 5 seconds compared to what's going to happen if this card gets into the wrong hand, and even 15,000 naira is a lot of money, right? So yes, the gentleman on the far left has answered the question partially, but I still really want to know what is it that is so compelling about this contactless payment that is going to, aside from about 5 seconds savings, that's going to warrant potential loss of my money. Thank you.
Okay, so responding to you, I think one of the part of the benefits is speed in transaction, because a lot of people that will consume this contactless payment, like some merchants who want speed in transaction and security. So a lot of people don't want their cards being cloned. A lot of people don't want they want proper user experience when it comes to contactless payment. So I would say monetary wise, there might not be, it depends on what the organization is offering in terms of, okay, maybe ours is cheaper than the next or anything, but generally speaking, I think it's great user experience, speed and convenience in carrying out transactions, security as well too, then reducing fraud risk as well, because most of these contactless, you can probably monitor and track financial transactions seamlessly by integrating with proper fraud monitoring solutions and carrying out other investigations when there are issues. But I think the basic area would be security, user experience, and speed in transaction processing.
Well, that's all, unfortunately. That's all the questions we can take for now. Please, a very huge round of applause for all our panelists here today. Ladies and gentlemen, what a day we have had here. What a time it has been at the Business Day Future of Payment Conference. Ask me, and I would say that today's insightful and actionable conversations have made one thing very clear, and that is that the future of payments in Nigeria is no longer an unattainable distant vision. It's unfolding before our very eyes, and we must tap in and stop playing catch up. We've heard from the unicorns, we've heard from the experts, and with collaboration, with innovation, with the right support, we can shape the simple, the secure, and the seamless future that we need in Nigeria. If you've stuck with us till now, we want to thank you very much. And we are sure you've taken a lot to ponder on, to act on today. And once again, I would like to thank our sponsors, Red Tech, thank Ethno Cyber Limited and Olaniwun Ajayi. Also, not forgetting those who have kept our audio in check. A round of applause for them. They have kept us, kept audio intact, no interruptions. It's seamless, like what we're talking about. And the entire Business Day conferences team. Please, a round of applause for them. They've done a lot of work to organize this thing here today. It is not easy. It's not easy work at all. So we thank them very much. And a round of applause for yourselves as well for being here. It's a great honor to have you here with us. Thank you very much. Well, to help us wrap up today's very insightful and robust conversations, please join me in welcoming Mr. Zebulon Agomo, who is editor of BD Sunday, to deliver the final address. A round of applause, please.
Thank you so very much for being with us since we started in the morning. My takeaway is that as we have started the conversation on the contactless payment, it means we're already there. At a point when we were about talking about computer, talking about GSM, talking about POS, it was like a fairy tale. And here we are. In fact, at a place I work early 2000, when we were trying to introduce the use of computer in the newsroom. And a circular was issued and said, who fails to learn how to use computer in typing his or her stories or in just so and so time, a person consider yourself no longer part of this organization. And I tell you, many people lost their job because they didn't take that information seriously. And when GSM came, some of us bought SIM card 22,000, and now it's being given free. So I thank all the Nostradamuses who have peeped into the future to see where we are going to. And really, on behalf of Business Day, I appreciate all of you for doing a great job. And while we are here talking about the future of payments, there are some also unscrupulous elements who are also gathering somewhere to plan how to compromise the system. But we will not give up because of evil elements. We are going to the future that is brighter, and every one of us must be there. And on behalf of Business Day, I want to thank our sponsors, Red Tech, Ethnos Cyber Limited, Olaniwun Ajayi. Olaniwun Ajayi has been with us, and they've been always identifying with us. And we talk about collaboration. And that collaboration, we feel it, we see it with the way we are doing with Olaniwun Ajayi, and we really appreciate you so seriously. And we want to thank our Chief Sales and Marketing Officer who have been with us here since morning, Mrs. Sijamude. So we appreciate your being here. And my colleague Bette had also ably recognized all those who made this event today possible. And I appreciate you all. And what can I say more? I bring the good news from my publisher, our publisher, Frank Ibogu, to say we are really grateful for your being here today. And we believe that the robust discourse we have had here today will really produce something worthwhile for us Nigerians and for us Africans. Thank you so very much for coming, and may the good Lord lead you all to your various destination in peace. Thank you, and thank you once again.